Welcome to Toy Polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from Toy Polloi, and today we're going to take a look at the 1979 Star magnetic toy from Disney's The Black Hole. Now, The Black Hole was produced as Disney's answer to Star Wars and came out 2 years after the original release of A New Hope, and it had a whole range of toys released with it. In most of the world we had the toys produced by Mego. They produced some 3 3/4 inch figures, and they also produced some larger 12-inch dolls and a few other little items. But some of the hardest items to get are the 3 toys that were produced and released only in Italy by GIG, and they are the magnetic figures. As you can see before me, I have Star. Now, if we take a look at the box for Star, you can see on the bottom that this is GIG. Now, this is an Italian company, and they released the 3 figures that you see on the back. So we've got the robot Star, we've got Vincent, and we've got Maximilian. Now, these were released nowhere else in the world, so trying to track them down does prove to be a little bit of a hard task. But as you can see here, we have Star. So let's take a closer look at him. Now, the figure itself is about 6 inches tall, and if we compare it to one of the Mego 3 3/4 inch figures, I don't actually have a Star figure because that is an incredibly rare figure, but we just have a normal Sentry robot here. You can see it's about twice the height of that figure. And the cool thing about this toy is the fact it's made with magnets. Now, if I show you here, I can remove his head, and you can see there is a little ball on there. The magnet is stored within the body part of it, so I can easily clip the head back on. We can also detach his hands and his legs, which means you can now swap them around. Now, this was actually a toy sort of gimmick that came from the Japanese Microman toy line, but was also released in the Micronauts toy line. If I bring in probably the closest figure to this, which is the Micronauts Baron Karza, you can see it's pretty much the same size, and this guy has the same gimmick. You can pull off his heads using magnets. Now, obviously, we can now swap these parts over, so you can see I can give Baron Karza Star's head, and he actually looks like quite a cool figure. And if we do the same the other way around, you get an equally cool figure. And this was really the big play point of the Micronauts sort of magnetic figures, the fact that you could swap parts. But obviously, with the Disney's Black Hole one here, there were only 3 of them, so there weren't that many figures that you could swap about, but it still makes for a cool gimmick to have with a toy. The Star toy does come with a couple of little weapons, as you can see here, which fit into some holsters in the side of his legs. There are holes there, and the gun fits in quite nicely, and you get 2 of these guns. Now, I would suggest if you have one of these toys, don't try to actually put the guns in the hands, because the plastic that's used for these figures is actually particularly brittle, and if you try and squeeze these guns into the hands, quite often you'll actually snap the thumb or the fingers off. And this toy itself actually has a little bit of damage, and the fingers have been snapped and glued back in place, but it doesn't really affect the way this toy works, because really most of the time you'd want to display it with the guns in the holsters anyway. Quite as often as well with these toys, they do suffer with sort of having loose limbs, and the magnets on them get a little bit weak. This guy's not so bad. The legs are a little bit sort of hard to clip in place, and so they do have a tendency to fall over and not want to stand up particularly well. But this guy's not doing too bad for his age. He does seem to stand up reasonably well. On the back of it, you can see there's some copyright information. This one says 1979 Walt Disney Productions, made in Hong Kong, which is weird, because for a toy that's released in Italy only, you'd have thought maybe they would have produced them actually in Italy themselves, but this is still made by the same sort of factories that made all of the other Black Hole figures, just it never got a release anywhere else in the world. Now, the box does have some quite nice artwork on it. It's got the sort of standard Black Hole logo that they use in all of their branding, and it's got quite a nice illustration of the Star robot. This is not a sort of photograph. This is someone's done a bit of an airbrush image, you can see, with all the little highlights and stuff on, but I do quite like that. It's a nice sort of artistic interpretation of the toy. On the side doesn't say much, just the name, and again GIG or GIG, and then on the back we have the information showing that it has the magnetic joints clipping it all together. Now, unfortunately, this box doesn't have any of the inserts or the instructions, so I've got no more information on it, but I'm sure it would have shown you a little bit more in detail how you would have played with the toy. And obviously at the bottom you can see the other images of the other 2 figures, which I would really like to get at some point to add to my collection. These figures do turn up from time to time on eBay and vary in price from sort of fairly cheap to ridiculously expensive, but I would say just wait and see what you can get them for, because although they're rare, they do turn up from time to time. I actually got this in a trade recently, so I didn't have to go through the process of buying it off eBay, and it really is a fantastic figure that I'm really pleased to have in my collection, mainly because I just absolutely love the magnetic nature of these toys. I think the magnetic sort of gimmick is a really lovely one, and you'll have seen me review recently recently some other Microman toys that have the same sort of feature, and I just like the way it works and the fact that you can swap them about with other toys, and especially now that I've got something to swap about with Baron Karza here, because these two sort of black figures look quite sort of looming and nasty, and I do think they look particularly good when they're displayed together, so that's how I display them here at Toy Polloi. One of the great things about the toys that were produced by Mego for the Black Hole was the fact that they already reused other bits from the Micronauts toy line for different figures. If we look here at the Sentry, you can see he's got these very tiny little hands that sort of move about, and these are just the same hands that we used on the Micronauts Time Travelers and other figures, just cast in the sort of purple plastic. So they obviously did reuse quite a lot of bits from the Micronauts and Microman toy lines in these toys anyway, which is I guess why they ended up using the magnetic feature from Baron Karza to go into this sort of special set of 3 figures. So really it is a great toy. If you do manage to get one, I would grab it and add it to your collection in a heartbeat, just because it's such a lovely toy. And as I say, I do hope to get the other 2 at some point, but I think that's going to be quite a long way down the line of my collecting, just because they're sort of so hard to find and tend to be a little bit more expensive, especially Vincent, because he really is the most sought after robot from the Black Hole. So I hope my review of this star figure has been of interest to you, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.